This is the Amp Hour Podcast, recorded July 14th, 2014, episode 207, Uneath, Urban, Ubication.
Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And I'm Chris Gamble of Contextual Electronics.
Just us again.
Mm-hmm.
Woohoo!
Got some good ones we'll announce at the end of the show coming up, but yeah, just me and you this week. And maybe not a full show again. We might be doing a little under an hour again.
Yep, I got to keep it short.
That's okay.
I got to get out of here, with my busy, hectic social life.
Of course, right. There may be one or two personal interactions today on Dave's calendar.
Not really, no. But yes, I am leaving the lab.
Good for you, man. That's good.
Yep,
do that
just
once a
under
week. I think,
Yep.
once a week and you're in good shape.
Absolutely. So what's been happening in the last 2 weeks that was it 2 weeks ago? We did a show together.
Yeah,
It's
well, we had
usually
Martin
every
on last
alternate
week, right?
week, isn't it? But not always.
Yeah. Well, the past 4 days I've been in Detroit.
How did that go? Did you
It was,
find a house that costs less than a VCR?
That's Cleveland.
No. Cleveland is the price of a VCR.
So Detroit is by definition
Detroit
worse.
is apparently not. Yeah, at least by definition,
Detroit,
it's less.
So I was out there with the Hackaday guys, and I told Mike last time I went out somewhere with the Hackaday guys, I kind of scooped them on some stuff while they got their video together. So I told them I wouldn't talk about everything, but I can talk about the some of the stuff we talked about or saw out there. And so this is my first time being out there, and I quite liked it actually.
As in the city of Detroit.
Yeah, well, it's weird, right? It's really weird.
What's weird about Detroit?
Man, it is so run down. Like, it makes Cleveland look really, really, like, well put together. And,
right, so the tourism ad is correct, is it?
Yeah, and, just beyond that, too, like, so it's really spread out, right? So Detroit was built, and it was built, when it was being built up in the 60s around the auto industry, it was built up for like 2 million people, and now they're like below 600,000, I think.
Right.
And this is the city of Detroit, so there's just
that's just
much,
a city, yep.
Yeah, and there's so much sprawl, and it's so spaced out, and there's highways everywhere. But, like, once you get inside the inner loop, right, like most highways, most cities have, like, 1 or 2 loops around them, basically, and then, intersecting highways. Once you get inside those outer loops, though, or you get inside the highway loops, it's just nothing there, man. I mean, like, it's just dilapidated.
Why is that? Because no one wants to live in the city, or they like living out further in the suburbs, or what?
Well, for a long time, it was really dangerous. I mean, like, so in the 60s, there were riots, and then a lot of people left the city, and then a lot of industry left as well, and then, basically then the companies moved their headquarters outside the city as well. Like, so Ford, we stayed out in Dearborn, and Ford is, like, probably 20 miles outside the city. So, and if that's where all the jobs are as well, that means the tax base is out there, right? This is just socioeconomic type stuff.
Interesting.
And because of that, then it just totally changes the dynamic of the city. Now, what's interesting about all this, right? So we kind of there's still a lot of racism there. I mean, like it's a weird dynamic, right?
Right.
And it's it's interesting on one level. It's mostly sad, like just like how everything's developed and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's signs of hope there as well, though. Like, and a lot of the people that I met this weekend were part of that. But the things that were really interesting were like how everything changes because of that. You think about an industrial district, like when you're a startup and you're looking for space, right? Cost is almost not even a factor now. You have to pay taxes, but like basically the buildings are almost free, right? And it's mostly you have to pay for security and kind of deal with that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So it's
that's totally opposite to here.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's just really interesting. But the people I met and a lot of the stuff that we got to see, like really interesting art culture there. A lot of the people we talked to were, it was not just technology, but it was like crossover technology and art, and it was a really good community of tight knit folks, and that's awesome, right? I mean, there's still a lot of drug problems. There's a lot of socioeconomics problems, but like the people that are like into it are really good people that are really working hard to improve their community, and that was really, really that was encouraging.
Excellent. So who's actually running all this sort of? Because I know they've been trying to get into sort of more high tech stuff again. Is it a government thing, like a state government thing, or a local council thing?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Because so the other thing with Detroit is that their city went bankrupt. Yeah. So right now they're in this weird like martial law type of like economic martial law type of thing where there's I
was going to say economic martial law.
Yeah, it's really weird. No, yeah. There's no way it would be martial law. There's not enough police people for it to be martial law.
I shouldn't laugh, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but they are trying to do stuff, right? And then the really crazy thing though is you go outside, you go to Dearborn, and it's like Anytown, USA, right? You go to all these outer ring suburbs, and they're just suburbs.
Right, and there's it's nice, and there's no crime, and there's families and schools and whatnot. Yeah. Okay, interesting. So it's just the city, really, the inner city that's sort of gone to crap.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so we had met by chance Suzanne, who's this, she's the creative director for the state of Michigan. And so she knew everybody, and that was really cool. And
I'm impressed that a state has a creative director.
I was very impressed as well. Is
that normal in the US? Because that, I don't think that exists here.
I've never heard of that before.
Heck, Australia doesn't even have a science minister anymore.
I know. Oh, geez, right? Yeah.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Let's not get started on that. But she was really cool, and so she knew a lot of the stuff that's going on, a lot of the interesting stuff going on. And one of the things that she talked about is actually, how they do art districts? They try and encourage arts in certain districts. They're trying to do that now with technology as well. And I wonder about that, because you look at cycles inside of cities. Oftentimes it starts with artists and stuff like that, and you have art districts, and then they kind of become the hip neighborhoods, and then people move in. Right. And then in San Francisco right now, right, the companies also move there because the people want to work near where the culture is as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's interesting because I was talking to her about this, and they're trying to leapfrog. They're trying to leapfrog the art stage, and I wonder if that kind of thing will work. Right.
I found that San Jose was like that, which is smack in the middle of Silicon Valley, really. San Jose, you walk around, there's just art everywhere. I got that vibe that they really take that sort of thing seriously. Yeah. It's great.
Right. Well, and it is great. I think that really drives, it's from a working perspective, right? It's that's what drives a lot of decisions these days, especially San Francisco, right? We hear about the Google buses and stuff like that. The reason those are such a big deal is because people want to live where near other people are and where there's culture and things to do at night and stuff like that. They don't want to necessarily live in Mountain View where Google is anymore.
Right.
And so that kind of stuff actually does impact a lot of things, it seems like. But my question is, if you try and leapfrog that where you say, all right, well, we're just going to go straight to technology. I was arguing with my wife about this. I think that it might not work. I mean, it'll be interesting if they try it and if it does work.
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't think you can.
Because, it seems like a lot of the, it would be closer in, right? You'd have, if you have a city type setup, you'd be closer in, so people wouldn't necessarily just commute for that. But I think that, if you don't have stuff where people want to stick around at the end of the day, people want to live near interesting stuff, usually when they're younger, and then usually good schools when they're older, right? I don't know. It's just interesting because a lot of this stuff does impact it, right? You see, especially a lot in the 80s and 90s, a lot of these industrial parks where people had to commute out to them, and they were often these large
they were awful, sprawling
campuses. And that's where I live right now. I'm on the outskirts
jungles,
of Cleveland. Yeah, exactly. It's all car-based and stuff like that.
Right. I will probably go out on a limb here and say that probably the best and most prosperous cities in the world are based on art culture.
Yeah, I agree.
Somebody prove me wrong.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Yep. And the only downside to that, I think, is that oftentimes then, if you look at cycles of cities, and especially as technology moves in, right? Like a San Francisco and stuff like that, oftentimes it prices the artists out. Now, the life cycle type of things is usually the artists go and find other places. Like right now, there's a lot of artists living in Oakland. Oakland's getting more expensive as well. And it kind of just shifts around like that. Same thing happens in New York and big cities like that. And so it's unfortunate because then they get displaced. But it kind of sows the seeds of like places people want to like live and where cool stuff is happening. And then it seems like technology and where these offices, when you start having offices move in, it's kind of the tail end, right? It's kind of boring then, right? Like, who wants to live near a big office park? So
no, same thing happening here in Australia. I will admit, Melbourne has got Sydney beat because it is arts based. Melbourne just really put a lot of effort into that. The government put a lot of effort into stealing all of our events and everything else. They just stole everything from that that was traditionally Sydney, festivals and shows and, even racing, through the streets of, Melbourne, like, Formula One and all that sort of, these other states just stole, pretty much everything. And Melbourne, that's just got Sydney beat. Yes, Sydney is, It is probably the best city in Australia in terms of, like what people think Australia is like, right? You want to come to Australia, you want to see the Opera House and the harbour and, and the bridge and everything else, right? It's all in Sydney.
But that's historical more than like current cultural, right?
Yeah, current. If Europe, But Melbourne has got Sydney beat hands down from the design point of view. You go out at night and there's so many little alleyways open and they've got culture and they've got, alleyways filled with art that you can just wander down. And Sydney's got, it's trying to come back. Sydney is trying to do their best to come back, but, Melbourne has that leg up.
It gets priced out. You said how expensive Sydney is too, right? I mean, it's hard. You're not going to get an artist when you don't. When art isn't necessarily funded, right? It's hard to maintain a contingent of artists. Oh. And we've talked about, you got to hear. You oftentimes hear about a lot about STEM becoming STEAM, and sometimes people scoff at that kind of thing. But I mean, if you look at an overall society and cultural type of thing, I think a lot of that stuff is necessary.
Yep, I agree. It's bang on.
And so the argument with my wife ended last night of like basically what it ultimately comes down to, especially when you talk about technology type things, and this is changing as well. But like what it ultimately comes down to, I think of like New York and San Francisco, the nerds want to be near where they can get a date, right? And that's probably going to be near the cultural districts. Hopefully, and maybe that's changing, right? Maybe the ranks of the nerds are becoming a little bit more balanced as well. But that's part of it, right? That's just the reality of the situation. So it'll be interesting over the long term, seeing how that changes.
Interesting.
They should read your book then.
Yeah, they should. Yep.
Yeah.
Art of Internet Dating, folks.
Mm-hmm.
That's 14 years old now.
Is it really? Wow.
Yep. 14 years old. I wrote that in 2000.
Wow.
Yeah, that's scary.
So the other things we saw, we were up in Ann Arbor as well. We saw a couple smaller companies up there. That's where University of Michigan is, which is
right. Yeah,
one of the top
that's pretty
engineering
big,
schools.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's one of the...
Yeah. Wonderful school. I used to recruit up there for Keithley. It was really. I always loved. I mean, talk about the disparity in recruiting, right? So I used to go recruit at my alma mater, Case, here in town. It would be like 50 schools versus 50 companies recruiting versus like 400 recruiting.
Wow.
And one time I was recruiting at a table next to Apple, right? And I'd never ever seen them at an event before, so.
See, that's crazy. We don't have that sort of thing, these recruiting fairs here, at least not that I'm aware of. Please, if anyone's a current student, please let me know. But it's like a culture. It's embedded in your culture out there. Just like, moving out of home to go stay at the university, as we've talked about. Well, they force you to stay to live on university accommodation, and then they have all these big job fairs, and you're supposed to, and then companies are supposed to fight for new graduates. I mean, here it's like, oh, you're a new graduate, you want a job? Yeah, come suck up to, come and do all the hard work and suck up to us. Don't, we're not going to actually go into there and beg for you to join us.
Right. Well, I think it's mostly
total opposite.
it's shopping around for the top. Like there's a larger base here in general,
Yeah,
right?
of
But then
course,
they're really shopping around for the top talent. That's what they're.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's the real reason they're on campus, right?
Yeah. Right. They're shopping around for the best. They're not shopping around for numbers.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yep. That makes sense.
So yeah, but Ann Arbor is beautiful. It's a cute little town. I mean, it's I'd been up there before. It's much nicer in the summer, obviously, than February. But yeah, we got to see. I don't want to spoil too much, but we did get to see Backyard Brains. Have you ever heard of them?
No. What's that?
They're like a kit. They're like a quasi educational business where they actually interface to bugs. Where they actually control cockroaches and scorpions and stuff like that, and they have kits that do that.
Another one.
That stuff was so cool. I mean, like, so yeah, there will be Hackaday videos about that eventually.
Yep.
So
that's good stuff.
Really, really cool stuff, and like, and like that cool crossover too, right? Like that whole biological thing. So yeah, so you got to see them, and then Pinocchio, which is like kind of like Electric Imp, kind of like Spark, kind of like a similar type of thing, except they do meshed networks instead. So they have a single Wi-Fi connection point, and then everything else is meshed together,
meshed
which is
together.
interesting.
Got it.
So I like them as well. Oh, and Spark. Speaking of Spark, they just raised a bunch of money, right? So we had
Spark.
We had Electric Imp on the show, right? So they do Electric Imp is kind of like a little bit more closed for the server side of things, right? But there's still Wi-Fi based, talking up to the server and stuff like that. Spark is, I believe, based on the CC3000. I could be wrong about that, but it's kind of like module plus Arduino type of thing. But then on the server side, getting things connected there, they have a completely open. I'm not sure about completely open. I'm pretty sure it's mostly open ecosystem, so you could basically replicate their server. I think, if not, yeah. So it's slightly different than Imp, but they're one of the ones who went through Hackcelerator, the Shenzhen program, and then they raised like $600,000 on Kickstarter for their platform. So they just raised $5 million. So that's cool.
Every man, these dogs raising money on bloody crowdfunding sites now. Oh goodness!
Well, this isn't $5 million on crowdfunding. This is
no,
venture.
Through outside, but they got it first on Kickstarter, didn't they? And then they went to.
Yeah, technically they got it first on Hackcelerator because that's one of those programs.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Money's too easy to get these days.
Yeah, it is getting easier.
I'm going to go out on a limb, hang my balls out there and say that's a problem.
Why is that?
Money's too easy to get, and that is always a problem. It's the problem why Sydney's so expensive in rent, as in housing is so expensive because money's too easy to get. Right? The same thing is happening in the hardware side of things. Money is too easy to get, so you got every Tom, Dick and bloody Harry coming along. Sorry, I should have thrown a girl's name in there. And
Mary instead of Harry. Tom, Dick, and Harry. Mary.
Right. Tom, Dick, and Mary. But then there's a 2-to-1 ratio there.
Okay, so just let it go, Dave.
Okay. And anyway, money's too easy to get. So you've got every freaking person coming along with their stupid idea, right? And then, it could be a good idea, and then no idea how to freaking execute on it and think that just money can buy the solution. And they just fail. There's so many of them just failing to produce anything. It's pissing me off.
Well, yeah, it pisses you off, but that doesn't really actually hurt anything. I think actually from a lot of our listeners' perspectives, it hurts all the people who invested in the bloody thing. I'm talking crowdfunding here. I don't care if they steal a venture capitalist money. They're just sucked in. You're a professional, right? You're a professional. You should know. You're investing money. You should do your due diligence and know what you're buying into. But all the, people out there getting sucked in on these crowdfunding campaigns and nobody's delivering anything. That's true. Yeah, wasn't there an example of that this week or something?
There's heaps of examples of this.
Was there a new example? I saw you posted something, right?
Did I post something?
Yeah, the Ars Technica article. Oh, yeah, this another password thing. Another...
Oh, yes, right. There was an article on Ars Technica website about this Kickstarter project. It's a USB password dongle thing, and they basically raised $3.5 million and then pissed it all away with. Well, they did finally get like a few units out to people, but apparently they were buggy as hell and just worthless. And so they basically pissed away $3.5 million because they just respun it and changed direction, and before you know it, $3.5 million is just gone for a little USB password dongle thing. Goodness.
I have to say, I don't really care. I don't care about people that back crowdfunding and don't understand. Like, I know that public might need to be protected.
Where you're coming from. I know where you're coming from there, but it just pisses me off that these people, like, they didn't fail for good reasons, right? They failed because they're totally incompetent.
Yeah, right? It sucks that there's no punishment.
Yeah, no, there's no punishment at all. They should be using their own damn money to fail, not other people's. And, and that's, I don't know. I just hate that. And they just walk away. Oh, yeah, it failed. And they don't even say sorry. They just say, oh, look, 85% of new businesses fail.
Yeah, right.
That's just what happens. And thank you for the money so that we could have our little shot and, screw it all up. But no.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how to deal with this kind of stuff. Like,
there's got to be personal responsibility, right? You're investing your money. There's got to be personal responsibility. But these campaigns are so slick, and they make it out as if they're, they've got experience doing this stuff, and they'll be able to produce it, bang, just like that. And the onus has to come back on the developer to actually deliver what they promise.
Well, I think the other thing too is the. So Kickstarter, what was that, a year or two ago now, they put in that, the prototype.
Yeah, the prototype clause. Yep.
And I saw a campaign today. It was a campaign today I saw.
Yeah.
That kind of did it, but like it wasn't, it was for some so it was touted as like make boards at home, make PCBs at home type of thing.
Yeah.
And then I went to the page and it had like 3D renders and then like shots of like circuit boards. And then like shots of like them etching copper in like a bath manually, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have a fully done up a project by the end." And I'm like, "This isn't a prototype, right?" I mean,
no, it's not.
What it ultimately comes down to is maybe Kickstarter's looking at this kind of thing, but I don't know. I think eventually the responsibility comes down to them for having in-house talent that actually can understand.
Yep.
I mean, ultimately the gatekeepers like Kickstarter are going to be where the failure point happens, right? Because if they let some shonky piece of crap through, then, what are you going to do?
Yeah. But then how do you vet the people's experience and ability in getting this done? They may walk in with their prototype, which they've produced, but they may be absolutely clueless, or not just clueless, but they may have the mentality that, the feature creep mentality, which kills a lot of these projects. Oh, look, we've got all this money. We'll add this and this and this and that. Just the sheer weight of doing that just, sinks the entire project.
Yeah, I wonder if they did...
That's hard to vet out. I mean...
What if they did, like, a mandatory margin on pricing, right? So...
Right, that's interesting. You can't do it as a loss leader to get into the market.
Not only that, so you have to show your actual costs...
Right.
Your BOM costs and everything else, and then there's a mandatory 75% margin on that, right? Like that could take care of a lot of crap. You're probably unless you actually get bamboozled, right? By a couple factories take your money. You don't go over to China or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And you try and give them your money, but 75% could definitely. And they hold it in escrow. I don't know, but it all becomes heavy-handed at that point. So
it does, yeah. But no,
I think part of it means you just have to accept the failure and be like, "Yep, sorry, folks, you got taken for a ride. Welcome to the world." Yep. Good thing it was $99 versus $1 million, right? I don't know.
Well, there's got to be more ability for people to pull out if they're not happy. Right? You give them the money, they get their money, but then some mechanism to automatically bring up, like if you're not happy, if they miss a schedule and you're getting the heebie-jeebies, right, that these people aren't going to deliver, you should be, maybe that would put a bit of fire up their bum, that there's an ability
That's pretty tough, though. What if you had like an 80,000 set of tools for shooting plastics, and then all of your people decide to go away, and your operational cost will only be another 10 grand, right? And I don't know.
I know it's hard. I don't pretend to have a solution for it, but, it's... Yeah... I don't know. I'm just sick of seeing it all,
I know. Well, and it makes the news a lot as well, right?
And it gives crowdfunding a bad name, right? Because I encourage it, and I want people to get that leg up where they wouldn't be able to before, and that's great. But then all these idiots are coming in and ruining it,
right?
And I don't know. There's just so many of them. And it's probably not their fault. Often it's not their fault. As we've said before, they go in with the best of intentions. They aren't deliberate scammers. But they just don't know how to run a hardware project. They got no clue. And
I think you just got to... I guess we got to just accept the cost of failure sometimes,
Yeah, I don't know. I just wish it didn't happen so often.
Yeah, well...
Anyway.
That'll shake itself out eventually.
Yep.
There was another article about this kind of, we've obviously have been keeping an eye on the hardware market, right? That's our market, and seeing this kind of stuff. And there's an article on O'Reilly from Max Schran, and he's talking about basically how it ends up that, basically what are we doing now with all this data coming from hardware, and why is all this hardware coming out now? And basically. Looking at the reduced cost of entering the hardware market now means that there will be many more hardware devices spewing data onto networks as well. But basically, he was asking about why it's gotten so much cheaper. Why has this all happened in the first place? Yep. And personally, I think it's because of a lot of these. If we look at like a Spark, right? Spark's building off an Arduino. It's building off of the CC3000, right? That kind of stuff, and it's all in there. And that's going to enable other stuff, but then that's going to enable other projects in the future. But it is, as a result of it, it is going to end up dumping more data onto the networks as well. And what are the consequences of all that kind of thing?
This also brings up the article, which I think is on the list. I loved the comparison of the Internet of Things to pet rocks.
Oh, really?
Yes. Where's that? Is it? I've seen it. Was it on this list, or was it? Did I see that somewhere else?
Oh, I don't know.
Somebody wrote an article comparing, the Internet of Things devices, right? That you're going to hook up to pet rocks. Like they'll have an initial, warm fuzzy thing. You like this, but then you just realize it's a rock. Right, you get it, and you're all excited to get it, and you pat it, and you talk to it, and it's all great, right? And then you realise it's just a freaking rock. It's useless. Like like when you hook an Internet of Things device up that tweets the temperature of your of your room or whatever. Who cares? It's just
Right.
It's pointless.
What is that really adding?
It becomes a pet. It doesn't add anything. It's just a pet rock. It's a useless lump of hardware.
Right.
And I think it's not a bad description. And that's their fear, is that it will become, there'll be so many, all these devices out there that connect, and people are buying all these devices that connect to it, and they just use them once and they go, oh, that's just useless. Why did I bother doing that? And then it just becomes a rock.
Well, it's interesting too because, so eventually people will catch on, right? They'll eventually see, I don't need any more pet rocks in my house. But I saw a thing today about, a lot of these chip manufacturers as well. They're looking at the marketplace and they're saying, oh, well, Internet of Things, they're not looking at it as like, we're going to make so much on a per device basis. They're just looking at it as, we're going to sell so many devices. Right, so the whole article I saw was about like scaling up chip fabs and how that hasn't happened in a long time, and basically how they're starting to finally see this kind of stuff. And it's like, but I guess there really is no guarantee of success. I mean, there's never a guarantee of success, but there's no guarantee that people are going to want additional gadgets in their house and everything, right? So
that's it.
Yeah.
It was the embedded FM podcast.
Oh, it was Alicia. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, no, Craig Sullender of Chipsite. He was a guest, and he made the comment
right.
yeah, all these Internet of Things, yeah, they're pet rocks. They are only a product as long as somebody loves them, and when the love is lost, they are just a rock. End quote. It's perfect.
Yeah, I haven't listened to that show yet, so I'll have to check it out. Of course, if everybody knows, Embedded FM is or Embedded the podcast is our partner
our sister podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say our partner podcast. So
right.
Yeah, that's great. I'll have to check that one out.
I love it. Boy, Internet of Things. Hey, we've got a Maker Fair in a couple of weeks here.
Oh, you do? Oh, that's
again.
Cool.
Yeah, the Sydney Maker Fair's back. It hasn't been a year because I think it was only last November or something. So it's only been 7 or 8 months or something. And 4 weeks. It's on August 16th to 17th.
Any big plans?
Me?
Yeah, are you going to present or are you going to attend? Are you going to attend?
Oh, I'm going to attend, and it's 2 days this time, which is great. It was
fancy.
1 day before, which was not enough. Well, especially for someone like me, it was probably enough for your average Joe to walk around and see everything. But for me, where I have to go around and shoot video and talk to people and people who know me come up and we chat for ages and stuff like that. And yeah, it's easy to blow a whole day and not actually get around and talk to everyone. So excellent. But yeah, I've been. There has been initial discussions that I might be involved in a panel or a debate or something like that. So I won't be presenting as such. But yeah, I might be involved in some way, shape, or form.
Cool. Well, that's always a good time.
Yep.
Maker Fair and such.
So yeah, that's in 4 weeks, August 16th to 17th. Over the weekend, and there's something else on at the Powerhouse Museum as well. So it's combined with something else.
And
it's really good. I think this is here to stay. And
yeah, they usually stick around for a while.
Ironically, the Melbourne one, as we were talking about, the Melbourne one did it for 1 year, and then they dropped the Maker Fair thing because they didn't like the way Maker ran stuff. They thought they put too many conditions on them and all that sort of stuff, so they went and named it Eurisco, and they did that once, but I'm not sure how popular it was. I didn't hear many people rave about it, and that's a thing. What is in a name? What's in a name?
What's in a name of a conference?
No, what value is in the name Maker Fair? Does it add adds so much legitimacy that if you try and compete with your own thing, is it even possible? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's... I don't know.
Are there any examples in the US where people have gotten fed up with Maker, with all their terms and conditions, that they've gone, bugger it, we're going to run our own show? Wasn't there like an open Maker Fair or something? Yeah. I think there's something along those lines where a group of people got fed up with Maker and they formed their own sort of company to put on their own independent shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, people have been doing art and technology fairs for a long time, right? But it's just a matter of
exactly.
how do you convince people to go, I suppose.
Well, that's right. And and it makes a difference when you have someone like the Powerhouse Museum here in Sydney involved, right? And you've got an awesome venue, right? You've got a museum of art and technology and and stuff like that putting on the show, and they've got all the resources and they've got the cool venue, and and you add the Maker Fair name behind it, and it's I think it's got win written all over.
That helps, yeah.
Yeah.
So remind me what that is again. What is the Powerhouse?
The Powerhouse Museum is a local museum dedicated to technology and stuff like that, art and
Okay, cool.
It's the best way to describe it.
I got to go to the Ford Museum a little bit as well in Detroit. We
Right.
were up there.
Is that like just Ford, as in the motor cars, or is it a car museum, or is it a?
It's
labeled
quite a
Ford?
mishmash, actually. It's
Right.
really odd.
Okay.
It's really odd, and some of it. So apparently, it was meant. Obviously Henry Ford was pretty rich by the end of his life, and so he has like Edison's lab up there.
Oh,
and he
right.
has like
Awesome.
Lincoln's house and like all this crazy. Like we didn't get to see
Right.
all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then obviously there's a huge car component to it. And there's a big plane component to it, and there's a lot of tie-in as well. Like I think that some of the old engines might have been made by Ford, like the airplane engines. There's a large agriculture area. I think a lot of that stuff might have been Ford stuff as well. But by far the most badass stuff was the power generation stuff they have there. Like that just blew me away. Like the old steam engines and
they're great.
translating steam into like, so they had like a DC
Yeah.
generator, like
Yeah.
Edison's early generators for the DC grid. And then also, the bigger ones for AC stuff. And like that stuff was just unbelievable. Like that, just because you never see that scale up close, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I
yeah,
don't know if
like
powerhouses
see it in
like that too.
photos, and it's it's different. You go there
Yeah.
and see it in
It
person.
was-
It's
unbelievable. So
Yep.
that was really cool. But yeah, that's where they have the Detroit Maker Faire, which is in a week or two as well. So
Got it.
So yeah, it's good. It's good when
Are you
they
going to
have
go to that?
No,
Going to go to
no,
the Detroit? No? Don't want to go back to
I'm done
Detroit?
traveling for a while.
All right. Yep.
I gotta
told
travel
you
in
you'd get
August.
sick of it.
Yeah. I'm going to DEF CON in August, so
Right.
I'll be at that in Vegas. So
Oh, Vegas. Yep.
yeah, Vegas.
There you go. Here we go.
Yeah.
Powerhouse Museum, Australia's Contemporary Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences.
Huh.
There you go.
That's cool.
Yep. So if you're ever in
check it
Sydney,
out.
if you're ever visiting Sydney, it's right at Darling Harbour there, like right in the city. Just go to the Powerhouse Museum. It's very cool. It isn't big in the terms of, in the scale of worldwide museums, but yeah. It's
But
just
still cool,
awesome.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. Yep. It's worth a look. So they've got a genuine Apple One there, folks.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yep. It's awesome. So anyway, that's in 4 weeks. So if you want to meet me, I'll be there for both days. It's part of the Sydney Design Festival or something.
Oh, so
There you go.
another art
Who
thing.
knew?
Huh?
Yeah, it's another year where we're trying to beat Melbourne at their own game. I like it. Actually, there's a few things going on there. There's one thing I want to see, so hopefully I'll get on site and get a visit. I was maybe not during the festival, but maybe before or after the festival if I can get a special tour. And yeah, anyway, we'll see.
That's good. That's good.
I need to get out of the lab. I need some fresh air.
You should keep an eye out while you're there. Did you see the new Raspberry Pi B Plus?
No.
Yeah, so there's a new.
Am I supposed to be excited about a new Raspberry Pi?
I don't know. That's why it's interesting to bring up here, I suppose.
What
So basically,
changes?
they did a rev of the hardware. They changed it to 4 USB ports. They changed out the audio stuff. They removed the composite video. They increased the pin headers from 26 to 40.
To make it incompatible? Is that
No, it is compatible still.
No,
the
backward
bottom
compatible?
26 are still compatible.
Right.
So basically, the way that they talked about it is that it's you could just plug on a new one. Or you could still fit old
Right.
stuff onto the old
Yeah.
on the old set of headers. So that's good. I mean, that's good. They kept that stuff in mind. That's it's always tough
well,
when
you
you
have to.
version stuff to a new version. You can really mess up a lot of stuff. But as long as you don't start diverging the firmware as well, then you're usually in good shape, right? You don't have to maintain multiple versions. Yeah. So the really interesting thing though is that so I got to hang out with Jason. I was hanging out with Jason this weekend too, with from BeagleBone or BeagleBoard rather, and we were talking about it a little bit. Element 14 has been making these as well, right? So they've had
Right.
people. You hear people talking about how hard it is to get these platforms, especially because people start integrating them into products, even though you're not really supposed to.
Yeah. Right. What do you mean you're not supposed to?
So they have they say you're not supposed to use it in a commercial context. Like you're not supposed. Like they're
Really?
not supposed to. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. What, this is the BeagleBone and the Raspberry Pi?
I'm not sure about Raspberry Pi, but I think the BeagleBone.
Oh, the
least.
BeagleBone. You're not supposed to. Why?
Yeah.
Because they only want to force you to use it for education, or what? What's the deal there?
Yes, I think so. Well, I think it's just basically an availability thing. You start to lose, you think about a supply chain type of thing. If you have someone that's willing to buy up stock of 1,000, they're probably going to get, for putting it into a product, they're going to probably get priority over someone who's buying 300 at a time to sell them onesie twosie in their online store, right?
Yeah.
Or at least they're gonna just suck up the inventory quicker.
Does that mean that they're not making any money on this, and they're not going to continue to run a huge service actually producing these things and not making any money on them? Is that
who's they?
They,
what do you mean?
Whoever produces the BeagleBone.
I think everybody's making money. Maybe not on the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, well, the Raspberry Pi was supposed to be a non-profit, educational thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
I think so. I'm not sure how I'm not sure how the economics of it all work.
Right.
I'm sure someone's getting paid in there. They're not doing it. The board house doesn't do it on charity, right? They might be getting paid by a foundation external to the actual hardware costs, but
yeah. But I don't think there's much margin in these products. I think there's
no, I don't think so either. Yeah.
So I think the only one making money here is Farnell's selling them Element 14.
Maybe I don't know about that though either, because
even their margins there are got to be small.
Yeah, I'm sure that they make their money on the other stuff, right? So if you go to Farnell or Element 14 to buy a Raspberry Pi, it's likely that they're if they charge you $10 for a Raspberry Pi case, you think that's fine, but then it's actually 50 cents to make that, right? That's where they really make their money then. So that makes...
So in the long term, is this just unsustainable? I mean, if you get a winning product like this that can be used in a commercial context in its thousands, I'm not talking hundreds of thousands, but in its thousands, then does that ruin the whole thing? If nobody's really making any, can it continue?
I think it can. Yeah, I mean, I think there's always enough. They wouldn't do it unless there was enough money to sustain itself, right?
Right.
Even if it was, foundational money.
Management can come along and go, well, look, we're not making enough margin on this. Sorry, gone.
Yeah, but any product. I mean, Apple charging you $2,500 for a laptop. Tomorrow they could say, well, we needed to charge $4,000, and then they kill the business because of it, right? I mean, there's really no guarantee in that case, but.
Because these platforms aren't open, are they?
Raspberry Pi apps, I've never been really sure about that. BeagleBone is, right? So if you look at the BeagleBone, it is open.
So anyone can go along and continue to produce it yourself. So if you design it into your product and you suddenly find that they're going to stop making it, well, you just take the files and go to a board stuffer and get them to make you 1,000 boards, right?
Right. Exactly, yeah. And maybe you pay more for that. Maybe you don't get the right, the same pricing that they would at volume.
If it is open source, right, how do they say, no, you can't use it in a commercial context? Are they using that license? They can't be using the open source hardware logo and name. Because by
there's
definition,
no way you can stop anyone, right? You can't stop someone. If you sell something at a fixed price, if a buyer from a company goes out and buys 200 boards at a time, well, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah. No, you can't stop.
It's more about what you encourage, right? So,
right.
Well, what's been interesting, so the whole reason man, takes a while to get here. So Element 14 though started making BeagleBones as well, right? So they had done a lot of the stuff behind the Raspberry Pi, and now BeagleBones are also being made. They're branded separately from the BeagleBoard Circuit Co ones.
Oh, right. So they've got their own flavor brand, do they?
Right. Yeah, and it's just following the same thing. It's saying, this is open source. They wanted to basically help the marketplace and offer other boards, and then they'd make money on it as well. And cool, right. Everybody's happy. Yep. Because if you didn't know, it's been pretty hard to get BeagleBones for a while now.
I've heard, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the world. And this kind of goes back to that same embracing hardware thing on O'Reilly. On the one hand, even if they're not supposed to be using them for commercial context, even if they are, right, that kind of helps speed the marketplace along, right? The time to market drops pretty significantly because of these pre-made devices, especially because of the communities around them, right? All the libraries are written and everything else. So that does definitely change things. So it's interesting to see how that's worked out. I think all that really ends up mattering is there's no, the only step in between is someone taking the files and reconfiguring it into their own format and then, integrating it into a product. So I think eventually that is the goal for every product that uses it to start with, but not everybody's there
would.
yet. Yeah.
But if sometimes often easier just to go, well, I'm just going to buy 1,000 of them and I'll just have a board that plugs on top.
Right.
Often that's easier. Yeah.
Right.
It's always a hard choice to know at what volume and what point you swap over to doing an entirely proprietary board for a product.
Yeah.
So,
well, the other problem there too is so if you look at if you're a company that's integrating like a shield, right, or whatever they call them like capes for the Beagle Bone.
Yep.
You could, in theory, the smallest technology you would need to use is the 0.1 mil headers that are on there, right? That's all you really need to populate. You could use everything else through hole. You could use really 0.1 inch. Oh yeah,
0.1 inch. 0.1 mil is pretty small.
Yeah, 0.1 inch. Yeah. Sorry, long day.
Slip of the tongue.
Yeah, and so you can could use pretty big stuff on there, right? And that's and that changes the dynamics of what your assembly house needs to use and the cost because of all that amortization of the equipment on hand and stuff like that.
Yep,
all that boring crap.
Terrific. Hey, you know what I've been doing?
What's that?
I've been going through old magazines. And I love it.
I saw your pictures. So you find anything? You find anything juicy?
No. What I'm going. Spoiler alert. What I'm going through and doing is, how we talked about, was it last week? How the TTL is 50 years old.
7400 series. Yep.
Yeah. So the 5400 series is 70 years old. So I thought 50 years old. So I thought, hey, I've got magazines from 50 years ago. Can I go through and find the first reference to them and the first commercial project and the first do-it-yourself project that used 7400 series logic?
Huh, and nothing?
And it's fascinating. I'm not there yet. I haven't finished. I've been searching through a few years and spoiler alert, yes. I've been searching through a few years, so I started with 1964, okay, because that's when the 5400 series was released, okay? So I started looking through the magazines, every issue in the places that they're, and no mention of it whatsoever. There's some mention of some Texas Instruments DTL stuff about 2 years later. And I found the first IC-based project, which was 1967, was the first IC-based project. So although they released this stuff in 64... right, but that was only the 5.4 stuff for the military project, so it's not surprising that you wouldn't find it in the in the hobbyist and commercial mags. So, but 7400 apparently came around 2 years after that. Can't find a mention of it, so I'm still looking. So my task continues. Hopefully, I'll have the video up tomorrow because it's way back Wednesday.
Oh yes, of course. What about? So, do they have any associated costs? So, like that IC project that you were looking at.
Yeah.
Does it have associated costs?
Yeah. Well, the first chips are like $1.08 or $1.50 each, or something like that.
And is that in
was
dollars?
pounds. That was pounds because Australia hadn't switched to decimal currency then. I don't think.
Okay.
So I think that was British pounds.
1.5 pounds, but was that in 1960s dollars?
That was
today's dollars?
That's 1960s dollars. I haven't done the translation of Australian pounds in 1960s to current dollars, but I'm sure it would have been expensive, right?
Yeah.
It would have, and you had to buy them directly from Texas Instruments, right?
Right, and you had to phone someone up. You had to be like, "Can I get one?" And they'd be like, "Click."
and there was this article in there about talking about how I don't know, Signetics or somebody was ramping up production to 40,000 chips a week or something like that, and
yep.
How many would they manufacture now? I mean, millions. Right. And it was
I have no nostalgia for that kind of stuff. Like, I just, that must have been terrible, like.
Oh, yeah, totally. But it's just fascinating how long it took. You know, I'm not there yet, and I don't know. It might be the 70s until I find the first 7400 series do-it-yourself project. Even though it might have come out in 66, it could take 4 or 5 years before it actually gets down to sort of like, you know, the hobbyist enthusiast type level. So...
Yeah, who knows? I guess you don't see us playing with 286 chips right now, right? When does that stuff kind of finally trickle down?
Well, see, it's different these days because you take for granted the fact that you can order the latest released chips. You know, they come out on DigiKey as soon as they're there. Bang! You know, you can order them anywhere in the world for,
somewhat reasonable
one-off
markup,
prices. Yeah. Reasonable there's almost nothing in there that's not reasonable in one-off quantity. If you want to make one project, I mean, the prices really aren't that unreasonable. And you can get anything you can imagine. And, well, back then, as I said, you had to buy them directly from Texas Instruments or some other company. They're local reps and things. No, the companies set up their own networks here. And you had to go through them, and you probably had to turn up in a suit and a tie and say, I would like 10 7400 chips, please. Certainly, sir. Let's fill out this paperwork. And then you'd have to
3
pay
carbon
by
copies, please. Yes.
and you'd have to pay by bank check. It's a totally different world.
So have you found any of what my favorite thing through the old magazines is always the ads. Did you find any good ads?
There's ads. I deliberately stuck. I mentioned a couple, but I actually tweeted a few ads. Actually, so if you're not following me on Twitter, you're missing out.
Yeah, I must have missed those. No, I saw some of these, but
I love the ads. But I'm trying to stick. The video's long enough already. I'm trying to stick to just finding this 7400 series logic, and I'm not there yet. And I've got to look through every issue, and it's taken some time. So you can't say I didn't research this one, folks. Can't say I slapped this video together.
Finally, we can't say that.
And I'm liking my new bench.
I saw that. Yeah, that was a nice looking bench.
I just put it in the middle, and then I didn't realize, hey, I can now sit in front of a bench with a bench in front of me and shoot a video that way. So instead of my usual talking head shot where I'm just sitting on a stool, like actually a meter away from the camera. When I often start those videos of those talking headshots and I just wave a product around. Well, now I can actually sit with a bench in front of me and I can do things on a bench. And why didn't I think of this 5 years ago?
Right.
And it's actually not a bad angle at all. I rather like it. So you'll see this in the video hopefully coming up on Wednesday. Although I did include a screenshot on Twitter where I showed the new angle of the videos. I rather like it.
Right.
It's just more flexible when you can put things on a desk in front of you and pick them up and manipulate them and show them, and I think it's going to be really useful.
Any word on how is the writing appreciably better? Like, do you notice the stylistic differences when you read? I'm not sure how much you're actually reading articles as well,
right?
But
no,
these are probably full-time staff writers, right? I mean, like that's what I think back in the day.
Well, they had full-time staff writers and also contributed projects as well. Exactly the same as they did. Nothing. I'm telling you, nothing has changed in 50 years.
Well, right? The amount of advertising.
In some cases, the contributors haven't changed in 50 years. Right, I'm reading Jim Rowe wrote this. I'm showing an article Jim Rowe wrote 50 years ago. He still writes for Silicon Chip magazine.
That's awesome.
50 years later, he's still producing projects.
Yeah.
Good on him. And
that's awesome.
I know. And nothing changes. And my writing style comes from what I read in those magazines. Right? So people who contribute projects to these magazines don't just do it blind. They do it because they spent a decade reading all these projects in there, and then that's how you end up writing, either consciously or subconsciously. So all the articles pretty much, and the wording and the style and all that sort of, grammatical stuff all stays pretty consistent throughout history. Yeah. It's rather remarkable. It really is. Yeah. Only thing
So I
that
guess it's
changes
not
is
gonna-
the parts.
I was gonna say, I guess it's not getting any better either, then, huh?
Right, no.
We get what we get, folks. It's
Yep. It's not going to
Yeah.
be Shakespeare.
best case scenario. It switches to a new medium, and well, you're hearing how well that's working out.
Yeah.
Wah, wah, wah.
And on that note,
Yeah,
that's the end of
we
the
should-
show.
Yep. So next week we will have Nadia Peak, who I mentioned 2 weeks or however many weeks ago. She was one of the speakers at O'Reilly Solid Conference, and talking about reconfigurable CNC type of machines that she wrote all custom code for. It was very impressive machines, and she's doing some cool stuff at the Media Lab. So I'm very excited to talk to her next week. And then 2 weeks
Excellent.
after that, we have a special guest as well, which I won't announce yet, but it's
boo-hoo.
very exciting. So I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent.
All right, man. Well, catch you next week. Yeah.
That's it. That was a very professional ending there.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Chris says bye.